Somebody was objecting to me using this shirt right here, using government governo mentis, the Latin word governo, which means to control or govern, and mentis, which means the mind. And I think they're getting hung up on, well, mente doesn't necessarily mean mind or whatever it is. What does govern mean? What does government mean? What are the synonyms of government in the English language? Some of the synonyms of government in the English language are rule, control, exert authority over, regime. But what I like to look at is how government actually plays out in our daily life. What does it look like? The agents of government, what do they do? And if you did the same things, how would you be considered by the rest of society? So when you look at government and how it operates, how it acts, and when we're talking about government, we're not talking about some enigmatic, ghostly mist of nothingness. We're talking about people who call it, because that's what government is. Government is made up of just people like you and me. Those are the people that believe that they have a higher claim over your life and property than you, to the point where they think that they have the right, the moral right, to rule you, to control you, to tell you to do certain things. And if you don't obey, and they also think that you have the moral obligation to obey their rule, to obey their control, to step in line with their authority. And if you don't, in their minds, you can be rightly punished if you fail to obey their commands. Now, what if you did that? What if you commanded anybody in your daily life to bend and bow down to you and submit to you and obey you? And what if you said, and if you don't obey me, if you don't step in line with what I say, I am going to punish you, or I'm going to have other people punish you for disobeying my word? People would think you were a psychopath. People would think that you have some serious problems and you are a criminal. But for some reason, agents of government can get away with that control, that rule, that exerting of authority, that acting like, a regime tyrant, that person who thinks they have the right to rule. For some reason, it's okay for you to do it if you're an agent of government. If you flash a badge and say you're with the FBI or the CIA, or you're a blue shirt from the TSA, we have the right to go through your luggage. What if, for example, you were walking in the airport right before baggage claim or at baggage claim, and you just started grabbing people's baggage and luggage that's not yours? What if you started grabbing it off the conveyor belt, unzipping it, and looking inside and pulling out the contents to see if somebody's got, shampoo or deodorant or conditioner? And then you started stuffing that in your pocket, or you had a trash bag and you started throwing it in because you say that they have too much. Or you say, oh, this thing right here can be used as a deadly weapon. You would be looked at like you were freaking crazy. But all of a sudden, because of some magic that happens, the 15,000 hour indoctrination program and the propaganda starts kicking into people's brains. And it's like, they literally look at this as though it were legitimate. What magic is that? What fantasy, what craziness is that? What kind of insane asylum are we in? So when people say they have a problem with this shirt right here, or the fact that I say, hey, it's to control the mind, well, it's to control something. And don't you think that agents of government, if they want to control your bodies, if they want to control the outcome of your life, don't you think they would also probably want to control your thought process and control your mind? Why do we spend so much money every single year, billions and billions of dollars every year on the Department of Education? Why does the government do that? Well, actually, they're not spending their own money. They're spending extorted funds that they extorted from you. That's another thing. What if you started extorting? Or let's say stealing, because extortion is, with the implied threat of force. You're actually saying, hey, give me your wallet or else. What if you just started stealing your neighbor's property and then selling it on eBay and then getting the money so that you can provide a service for the community? People would still call that theft, and they would still call you a thief, and they would still say that you're engaged in criminal activity. But for some reason, when governments do it at the barrel of a government gun, it's not a crime. How can that possibly be? It can't. So you have to ask yourself a question. Does anybody on this planet have a higher claim over my life and my family's life and our property, so that they can say, oh, we're going to put a tax on that money that grandma wants to give to little Eddie. We're going to put a tax on that. We're going to call it a gift tax. And we're going to, that $5 that grandma wants to give to little Eddie, we're going to take like 10, 15, maybe even 20%, maybe 50%. Depends on how we feel that day. If you inserted yourself in between grandma and little Eddie and you took a percentage of that money, you would be called a thief. That's what thieves do. Thieves steal property that belongs to other people without asking for it. That's what makes theft. That's why we say taxation is theft, because you're taking money from somebody. And what is money? I don't care what form it takes. I don't care if it's gold, silver, fiat notes, whatever. It's a symbol. It's a product of your time and labor and energies. So somebody thinks that they can help themselves to the product of your time and labor and energies. And if they can do that without being, getting in trouble, without being jailed, without being seen by society as a criminal, if somebody can steal your labor and you have no recourse, what is that called? It's called slavery. When somebody lays claim to you as though you were property, they can claim your labor and your time as their property. It doesn't matter what percentage, because then you got to ask yourself, what percentage isn't slavery? I mean, can they take 1%? Can they take 2%? Can they take 0.5%? Is 10% okay? Is that reasonable? Because we got to call things the way they are. So that's why I say government is to control the mind, because to govern means to control, and they do mean to control you. They mean to control all of you. And now we see the deep CBDCs. And when I say total control, they want total control. The central bank digital currency will actually fulfill that plan for the elitists that we're constantly talking about. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the UN, the WEF. They want to totally control you to the point where they want the central bank digital currency to be online so that they can put digital money into your bank account. And if you've done something or you've said something that they don't agree with, then your social credit score, kind of like you see in China right now, will be severely damaged and your freedom options will be limited in society. Oh, you thought you were going to shop there? Sorry. You can't shop there. Oh, you thought you were going to spend that money there? Sorry, they just took 20% out because you just did something. You went beyond your allotted carbon credits for the day. Or you posted something online that was against the narrative. So now you can't shop at certain places. Now you don't have the money in the bank that you thought you had. And then they want to put an expiration date on the central bank digital currencies to where they say, well, you have to spend it all by November 30th or it's gone. So now you can't even accumulate wealth. Now you can't even pass it down to your family, to your children and your grandchildren. They want it to expire. So when I say government is to control the mind, it's exemplified by the way agents of government treat the rest of us. And if you did the same thing to others that they do to you, you would be considered a criminal who's trying to control others against their will too. So I don't understand why people have a problem with calling government to control the mind or just to control people. It's kind of like, and they'll use euphemisms. Agents of government will use euphemisms to sound like, well, what they're doing ain't so bad. What do you want to initiate? Gun control. But what is gun control? Are they really trying to control inanimate objects, or are they rather trying to control you who want to purchase or currently possess inanimate objects? So rather than it being inanimate object control or gun control, it's really people control. And then they say, oh, let's get away from control, because that's really what it is. It's about controlling people. It's about controlling what people own, when those people just want to buy that personal protection device so they can protect themselves and their family. And besides that, it's none of my business why you own a gun. It's none of anybody's business, including especially agents of government, why you want to own a gun. Don't ask the question, because it's none of your business. So that's why I call it control. And then they'll get away from control because they don't want to make it look like government is really about the business of controlling. So they've gotten away from that. And instead of calling it gun control, or they would never call it people control. We don't want you to think that we're trying to control people. They call it gun safety legislation. Well, that sounds really good, doesn't it? You want people to be safe, don't you? Well, of course I want people to be safe. But that doesn't mean I want gun safety regulation, which is gun control, which is really people control. I don't want you to control people. So there's my argument. Who was it that said this? Shoot, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but one or two people have said, Brian is wrong about government. It doesn't mean to control the mind. Oh, doesn't it? That's not the way it's lived out. That's not the way agents of government conduct the affairs of their life and controlling you, saying, oh, you can't have 3 ounces of shampoo in your bag. You got to take your laptop out. You got to take your shoes off. Put your belt in the bin. Let us radiate you. Oh, you don't want us to radiate you? Well, we get to feel you up then, says the blue shirts of the TSA. It's radiation and molestation practices, and you don't want that. I don't want that. But what they try to do is, oh, it's for your safety. When you get on that airplane, you want to be safe, don't you? That means we have to shake everybody down. We have to examine everybody. We have to pat them down. We have to molest them in some way or radiate them. Light them up. It's all for your safety. If you give up that essential liberty to receive politically promised security, and that's what it is from the TSA and the Department of Homeland Security. It's politically promised security. It's security theater because it never comes. They did their own red team test. You can look this up. Just look up ABC red team test or CNN red team test, and you'll see that they failed in some cases 95% of the time. They failed to keep guns and bombs off of departing flights, which means you're really not safe like you think you are because you went through the blue shirt corral as they treat you like cattle, tax cattle. So yes, government equals the right to rule. Government equals control. Government equals authority. Government equals bow down or else. We reserve the right to punish you if you don't do what we say. That's what government is. And that's what government's always been. And it's inherently illegitimate and evil and criminal. And if you got an argument against that, I would like to hear it.